Happy Wednesday and a happy first day of October to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. Going to go over everything that you need to know in terms of what the tropics are doing, in terms of what your forecast is looking like for the next week. And we'll also give you a fair specific forecast as we roll into the first day of the fair, which will be tomorrow on October 2nd. But first things first, we have entered a new month in the calendar year. That means that we're going to have to recap everything that has to do with September. So first things first, let's talk about the rainfall. And yes, you would not be wrong in assuming it was a very dry month of September. We actually did have a couple of days towards the end of the month where we recorded some form of rainfall. It wasn't much, once again, just a few hundredths of an inch. That one day, September 25th, that's actually when we were having some widespread rain actually move into the near vicinity, but still not too many totals at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. So take a look at this total when you add up all of these numbers. We had 6 days of rainfall in September, and all of them equate to around 0.4 of an inch of rain. So on average, September is not an overly wet month by any means. 3 inches of rain, just over 3 inches of rain on average for September all time. And the record was set back in an active tropic season back in 2004. Over 12.5 inches of rain. We didn't get anywhere near those numbers. So September is going to put a dent in your 2025 rainfall graphic. You can see that obviously it's not straight green boxes, it's not straight red boxes, but these red boxes are going to indicate the days or the months, that have been rather dry. But overall, we're still trending above average where we should be across the whole year of 2025. Obviously, this red box right here in September wasn't the driest month that we've had. That actually goes to July, where we were almost 4 inches below where we should have been for the month of July in terms of rainfall. But we followed July up with a very wet month of August, 6 inches above what we normally see in terms of rainfall on average for the month of August. So overall, when you add up all of these boxes that we've had, hovering just below 4 inches above average, and this is as of September 30th. We'll continue to get a box for October, November, and December, but typically as you head into these cooler months of the year, you're kind of out of the season where you start to see your wetter months of the year. So it's probably going to be fairly dry for some of them. I would imagine that maybe if we get another downtick of an inch or two, maybe even below what those averages are for October, November, and December, we could return around average. But with the very dry stretch that we have had for the month of September, it has put all of Central Georgia in these abnormally dry conditions, which is highlighted by this yellow color. Being abnormally dry, not really anything to fret about necessarily, but it's once you get to the drought categories, that's where you really need to start taking action, making sure that you carve out a couple times a day to hydrate any vegetation that you have, your backyard lawn, your backyard garden, maybe even a couple of plants that are scattered throughout your backyard. And then you can see that you have some steps above even that. So severe drought, extreme drought, and then into exceptional drought. We actually do have a severe drought over here on the Georgia-Alabama state line, but will that expand over into portions of central Georgia? We'll have to see, because when we had that frontal boundary come through, that did give us maybe about 1/4 of an inch of rain in South Bibb County. The higher totals were actually found in this area farther over to the west, so we'll continue to see what happens with the latest update of the drought monitor, which will get released tomorrow. So all of this data is as of September 23rd, which was last Tuesday, and the data with the latest update of your drought monitor that will come out around 8 a.m. in between 8 and 9 a.m. tomorrow. That will be as of this past Tuesday, which is September 30th. Yes, that was yesterday already. So already getting my days mixed up. But let's go into your headlines. Dry and windy, that's going to be the main story as we close out the work week, and a little bit of a taste of fall. We'll talk about what those temperatures are looking like for the last couple of days for the work week. But then we do welcome back the rain chances, and going to be very opportune. I just showed you that drought monitor. We definitely need some rain, but it's going to be a welcome trade-off. This dry stretch is going to come with some cooler temperatures, and that's something we haven't seen as we've transitioned into the start of the fall season thus far. So we will enjoy some of the cooler temperatures, and then we'll welcome in those weekend rain chances, kind of getting the best of both worlds. And right now across the quad in central Georgia, it's a different sky cam view depending on where you're heading out the door. We're looking to the northeast over downtown Macon here. Lots of blue sky off in the distance. Same story as we're looking over to the west and the northwest over downtown Dublin. Going over here to Warner Robins, you can see some higher level clouds off in the distance, whether those are just a few scattered cotton balls or you can see some thicker cloud cover, which is the case down at the Georgia National Fairgrounds, but still plenty of sun that is shining on all of the fair park rides. Look at this. They're actually testing out one of the rides back here in the back. You can continue to see it spin around. I believe that's the speed ride, so that's one where you kind of lock yourself in, and then there's another cart at the bottom, and it just rotates you in a complete circle. One of my personal favorites, but back when I could actually handle those. A lot of those fair rides give me some serious motion sickness now. But lots of vendors, carnival games that are continuing to make those last-minute preparations for getting going around 3 o'clock tomorrow for the start of the Georgia National Fair. Here's a look at your temperatures right now. Maybe a tad bit warmer than the last couple of days, and that's because, yes, we have more sunshine in the forecast. So your numbers may be going to be a tad bit warmer this afternoon as opposed to what we have had over the course of Monday and Tuesday. Plenty of areas already in the mid to upper 70s, still sitting in the low 70s across Eastman, Swainsboro, and Thomaston. And just looking at the general trend, 77 is the top number I see, and I see a lot of those farther to the north. So I would say that most of your cloud cover is more than likely going to be farther to the south, but not doing a good job of blocking all the sunlight. It's relatively thin cloud cover. And let's go across the eastern United States. Most of our neighboring states are hovering with pretty similar conditions as we are here in central Georgia. 78 in Montgomery, 74 over in Charleston, 78 down in Jacksonville. And of course, the farther south that you go down into Florida, a more hot and humid atmosphere, 83 in Orlando, and that is the same case for all those Gulf Coast areas. 85 in New Orleans, 84 over in Houston. And farther up to the north, you can see plenty of 70s, up to the northeast, plenty of temperatures right around the 70s or maybe just lingering in the upper 60s. This is the time of year that those areas up to the north definitely start to get some cooler temperatures than us. Dew point temperatures. This is what's going to make all the difference throughout today. So far during the morning hours, your dew point temperatures mainly been in the lower half of the 60s. Now the last couple of days we've had plenty of upper 60s. We've had patchy areas of the dark green shade, which is the very muggy color that you don't want around. Well, we continue to see these dew point temperatures steadily tick down. It's actually probably more dew point temperatures in the 50s now as opposed to even at the 60-degree mark. And even if you are into the 60s, it's just 60 flat. So we continue to see the light green shade build out of the forecast throughout today. A very dry environment is going to be present. So yes, while your temperature may be a degree 2 or 3 warmer, you're pairing that up with plenty of sunshine and some drier air. I think you're probably going to enjoy the forecast today a whole lot more than the gloomy and muggy conditions that we've had Monday and Tuesday. So humidity levels, continuing to see those wind arrows out of the north and the northeast. That's going to funnel down those areas that you don't see any shade of color. So once again, on this legend, we don't want the dark green color. Once you get the light green, not necessarily too bad by any means, but it's really this area of no color that's just going to show the landscape of the earth. That's going to indicate your drier air and dew point temperatures that start to get down below the 60-degree mark. So the humidity, not going to factor those feels like temperatures throughout today. You will see that all these temperatures, maybe some areas that are slightly warmer, but I'm not entirely sure how accurate that necessarily is. I do believe that the humidity is not playing a role in what it feels like outside. And we also have that steady breeze right now. Take a look at this. Occasional gusts up to 16 miles per hour in Milledgeville, 17 miles per hour in Swainsboro, and over into Taylor County, also a 17 mile per hour gust. Now, your wind speeds are mainly going to hang out sustained in that 5 to 15 mile per hour range throughout the course of not only today, but the next couple of days. We're going to see plenty of blue and yellow colors on that wind and wind gust map. So hour by hour, we'll continue to warm up just shy of the 80-degree mark by the time we roll into lunchtime at noon, which is a little bit warmer than, say, 73 degrees that we did see yesterday during the midday hour. And now we go into the afternoon. High temperatures peaking at around 82 degrees, and then they will begin to drop. So yes, 2 or 3 degrees warmer than what we hit yesterday. Had a high temperature of 80 for the second day in a row. 67 for a morning low temperature. So that's also a difference that we saw today. Your morning low temperatures got down into the lower 60s. Eastman even popped up a 59 earlier this morning. The cloud cover has kept our morning low temperatures a tad bit warmer, but it kept your afternoon high temperatures maybe just a little bit lower. But in fact, we're going to have plenty of sunshine as we close out the work week, and we're going to have temperatures below that 80-degree mark. So it's really just the best of both worlds. Taking a look at your records, 2019 continuing to set a record just about each and every day is what it seems like. 100 degrees about 6 years ago for yesterday all time. Absolutely not. We are getting those triple-digit marks out of here. 35 for a record low, just 3 degrees above freezing temperature, if you can believe it or not. Taking a look at your sunrise and sunset times yesterday, because we already talked about all your rainfall data. 7:28 yesterday morning, 7:20 was the sunset. So we're going to continue to see that sunset get a little bit earlier and a little bit earlier each and every day of the Georgia National Fair. Taking a look at today, less muggy and staying breezy, and we'll have more sunshine present, so your afternoon high temperatures still right there around average, maybe just shy of average at 83 degrees. That sunrise was at 7:29 today, and you'll see your heat indices peaking at that 83-degree mark as we transition to around dinner time, just past dinner time, your feels like numbers and your actual temperatures, because that's basically what it's going to be throughout today. Go back down into the 70s where it does feel a lot more pleasant. Satellite and radar picture, gaps in the cloud cover. There are some scattered clouds farther down to the south like we were talking about with those current temperatures. And you can see some cloud cover up to the north and the northeast. But overall, the most important takeaway with this is no rain whatsoever in central Georgia. And in fact, rain does look pretty hard to come by anywhere in the state of Georgia now after a couple of those scattered light showers over the past couple of days. And we take it over to the east, where you can see maybe some showers off the east and southeast coast of Florida into the northern Bahamas. And here is Hurricane Imelda continuing its path away from the United States. But a pretty cool satellite image right here where you can actually pick apart an eye trying to establish itself as it makes this direct path over towards the island of Bermuda. Bermuda already saw outer bands of rain and some wind gusts from Umberto that did pass it as of yesterday, and now going to begin to see the impacts of Hurricane Imelda over the course of the next 24 hours, I would imagine. Imelda is actually moving at a very, very good clip now, as opposed to the slow speed it's been moving at over the last 2 days. So let's take it to future view and talk about your rain chances very briefly, because we're not going to see much, and then I promise we'll get to your fair forecast. I know that's probably what a lot of you are tuning in for. We take it to a crystal clear start to your Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon, not seeing much in the way of cloud cover. We'll have the most clouds present on Wednesday throughout the next 3 days. And then as we go into the evening hours, we do see passing clouds, maybe some showers down to the south and southeast of us. I just went ahead and went without the pause point on Friday. Maybe a slim chance of a very isolated sprinkle shower that's going to last 3 to 5 minutes in time that you could catch if you live in Telfair, Wheeler, Montgomery counties. But overall, I've still elected to not go with a rain chance over the next 3 days. So a little bit warmer this afternoon, then finally the cooler air starts to make its presence known. We're already getting a feel of that drier air, but morning low temperatures down into the upper 50s to kickstart Thursday, going to bring back that slightly cool and crisp feeling as you walk out the door. Maybe going to be some light jacket weather by all means. 78 for a high temperature, crystal clear skies throughout your Thursday. Maybe some mostly sunny skies as we go into Friday, a few more clouds in the picture. 57 for a morning low. So I do think Friday morning is going to be the coolest of the bunch, and Thursday afternoon may be the coolest of the bunch in terms of what those actual numbers are. But the difference is you're pairing up these upper 70s with some mostly sunny skies as opposed to a gloomy atmosphere where the cloud cover is really your dominating factor, or some rain-cooled air. We're going to get into our stretch of days where, yes, the temperatures will be cooler and finally paired up with sunshine during the fall season. Now let's get into your fair forecast for tomorrow, and I'll do some tweaking with the numbers given the latest model data as I show this graphic on air a whole lot tomorrow, and we will be showing these kind of graphics all throughout the next week and a half. We have a lot of fun graphics that we have for the fair. This one I did a little bit of arts and crafts and put the clock tower. We have our funnel cake stand, the pig race, the agriculture shows, the agri lift here in the background, and one of the Ferris wheels. So we have a bunch of cool elements, just kind of put them all together and put it on the template of another graphic that you may have seen. But winds out of the northeast about 5 to 15 miles per hour. The occasional gusts even could get up to around 25 miles per hour. I think that's mainly going to be closer to when the gates open tomorrow. So the gates will be opening at 3 p.m. tomorrow. That's actually going to be the latest that they open throughout the entirety of the fair. I think they do begin to open at 10 a.m. each and every day after that. And then maybe the very last day of the fair might have some odd hours, just like the first day does. Crystal clear, plenty of sunshine, 76 degrees at the warmest. And then your temperatures should hover somewhere in the lower 70s as you're heading into the evening hours, and then closing time around 9 p.m. 68 degrees, maybe a few passing clouds in the forecast, but it will be dark, so you won't even be seeing any of those clouds. Sunset tomorrow at the Georgia National Fairgrounds. Go ahead and bookmark it, 7:17, and so around 7 o'clock you're going to start to see those beautiful colors in the sky and starting to get an image of the sunset with all those fair rides off in the distance and reflecting off some of those retention ponds. No excuse not to head out to the Georgia National Fair for opening day tomorrow. So how long will the lower humidity stick around in the forecast? We can continue to see that northeasterly breeze pushing in those areas of no shade where you can see the landscape of the earth into central Georgia. And yes, some areas are going to have some very faint shades of light green, but overall I do believe that most of your dew point temperatures going to really remain somewhere in the upper 50s, maybe down into the mid 50s or just the lower 60s. We go all the way into Friday evening at 9 p.m. Still not seeing any noticeable moisture in the forecast. You can start to see that, yes, maybe some patchy areas of dark green farther to the south and the southeast. That's just going to be associated with maybe a bit of Atlantic moisture hanging around in those coastal areas of Georgia. I still don't think that will have anything in the way of rain chances, just given that downtick in the humidity levels. In terms of the breezy conditions, they will be a bit more widespread throughout today. In fact, your Wednesday afternoon, probably the least gusty of the next three. We continue to see a very prominent and widespread breeze build in for those afternoon hours on Thursday. I think we have the potential for gusts up to 20 and 25 miles per hour, not only in just a select few areas, but pretty widespread all across central Georgia. So going to be a windy day, even though, and along with some of those cooler temperatures, definitely really helping out with the fall feel. Now we go into Friday at 5 p.m. Looks like the stronger breeze will be present farther to the south. Does that extend up into Perry and West Houston County? We'll have to see, but still no signs of this breeze leaving whatsoever, and it still maintains this direction coming in from the northeast. So hopefully it will just continue to send us round after round of some of that cooler air and some of that drier air that is present up in the Carolinas and areas farther to the northeast that we got a good glimpse of on the current temperatures map. You did see that Washington, D.C. still hanging out in the upper 60s early this morning, but I think they have more cloud cover and actually maybe some rain in the forecast. And as well, they're farther to the north. This time of year, areas farther to the north are typically going to be cooler because they're farther or a little bit closer up to the North Pole, and the North Pole is beginning to be tilted away from the sun during this time of year. Afternoon high temperatures every single day below average. Even the 83 that you do see today for the first day of October. 84 is your average high around this time of year. By the time we transition into the weekend, I would imagine that number dips down to 83 degrees because we continue to see our morning low average dip down very steadily as well. This morning should have been the last morning that we were above average for our morning lows for at least the stretch of Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Having a bit of that cool, crisp feeling in the air into the end of the work week and into the beginning of the weekend. 62 degrees for a morning low temperature on Sunday. Yes, it's above average, but it's still going to feel mighty pleasant as you're heading out the door. But we do have some talking points as we go into Sunday for the end of the weekend. Your humidity going to continue to go down in between today and tomorrow, but then it does look like it steadily rebounds as we go into the weekend. Specifically Saturday and Sunday, we start to hang out in this humid range. Remember, we typically are probably going to see our dew point temperatures slightly above where these points do lie on your muggy meter. And then by the time we go into Monday, that should probably be the most humid day as it does currently stand, but increasing humidity as we go. Really, I think Saturday, Sunday into Monday. Those are the 3 days that I think we at least have a bit of a rain chance, and I'll show you what I mean according to our long-range models. So we do have increased cloud cover already starting on Saturday, afternoon. And we could have the slim chance of a couple of these very faint shades, or very light shades rather I should say, a blue or green popping up in very isolated areas. So maybe about a minuscule 10% chance. But as we transition into Sunday afternoon, it looks like all of that moisture down to the south continues to creep up to the north. This does look pretty definitive, and widespread rain chances for central Georgia going into your Sunday afternoon. As of right now, we know these long-range models aren't the best. We'll continue to fine-tune that and have to see a little bit better model agreement. This is the first time I've actually seen these models agreeing on that widespread rain for central Georgia. Now we transition into Monday afternoon, and it still looks like on again and off again showers are still going to have the possibility to be present. That continues into your Tuesday next week. But then by the time we get into Wednesday, finally it looks like we're clearing out. And then we turn our eyes to the other direction because we are seeing indications of a frontal boundary starting to push in from the west and the northwest. So that could create another bit of a gloomy atmosphere towards the end of the work week next week. That would be the timing that you want a front to come through, maybe around Thursday or Friday next week, because it would start to clear conditions out for the remainder of your weekend next weekend, which will be the closing weekend of the Georgia National Fair. But a lot to fine tune. Just know that the rain chances increase at the end of the weekend into the beginning of next week. Now checking in on the latest update of Hurricane Imelda, now has popped up to a Category 2 storm. So if it pops up to a Category 3 storm, we'll talk about what that can mean in terms of some of the recorded storms that we've seen so far in the hurricane season. But Imelda is going to continue to move to the east and the northeast. Right now moving at 20 miles per hour. Like I mentioned, moving at nearly 3 times the speed it was moving at this time yesterday. It was moving at about 6 or 7 miles per hour, now up to 20 miles per hour. 100 mile per hour winds, pressure of 966 millibars, and we can see just on the general satellite imagery that Imelda has much better circulation and organization as opposed to Umberto. Yes, this isn't just scattered cloud cover to the northeast of Bermuda. Really hard to see that label right there, but Bermuda directly in the path of Hurricane Imelda. And this is Hurricane Umberto, which has really begun to disorganize. I'll pop up that graphic in just one second. But as we go across into the end of the work week, into the beginning of your weekend, we will eventually see Imelda form into a post-tropical storm, but in fact, it could have some implications back over into Western Europe like we talked about with a lot of our systems as of recently. So what goes now in terms of your current watches and warnings? Well, that is going to be a hurricane warning for the island of Bermuda, meaning that hurricane force conditions are looking likely within the next 36 hours and probably even a slimmer time period than that, just given how fast Imelda is continuing to move. I would imagine that Bermuda starts to feel the impacts sometime later today, later on Wednesday into early on Thursday morning. And once again, those hurricane force conditions are winds of at least 74 miles per hour that are going to be present. Right now, 100 mile per hour winds associated with Imelda and still forecasted to be of that Category 2 strength by the time it makes its presence known in Bermuda. So obviously, it is not going to be a good situation for the island of Bermuda. Hopefully, we are going to continue to see it move very fastly over the island of Bermuda, because if it just kind of sits over that same area, that's where you have some flooding risk. You can at least take that away. That's one less impact that you would have with that tropical system. And now talking about the remnants of Umberto, we just got this update here at 11 a.m. Going to continue to move over to the east-northeast, just to the northeast of Imelda down there to the west of Bermuda. Umberto is not expected to have much more of a lifespan, except maybe if it continues to move across the Atlantic Ocean. I have seen some model runs on social media and just looking for myself. Umberto may try to briefly reorganize as it goes over towards areas of the United Kingdom. Could have implications over in Ireland, maybe over into England, all of those nations right there just in the northwest area of Europe, but that is far from set in stone. That would be in the later portions of the weekend if Umberto is forecasted to actually impact those areas. But 70 mile per hour winds, so yes, it does say remnants, but it still has its fair share of gusty winds, even though it continues to disorganize, and a pressure of 980 millibars. I do imagine it's just going to continue along this path, continue to look more and more disorganized, and those wind speeds are eventually going to go down. But right now it's in that portion of the Atlantic Ocean. Once you get to the east or northeast of Bermuda, there is nothing it is going to impact. So we have talked about Umberto and Imelda both claiming the 8th and 9th named storms of the 2025 hurricane season list. And you may ask, Alex, is there anything else out there that we need to worry about? You've been talking about these two storms for about a week now. We want to know if there's anything else we should be on the lookout for. Nothing else in the tropics that has been outlined for potential development. But if there is one, the next name to claim would be Jerry, and then we follow it with Karen, Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, and then we get to this last column over here, maybe. As of right now, if we're not seeing any potential areas of development and we continue about that, we're getting into a less and less active time of the tropic season. Can't ever let our eye off the tropics, but right now it doesn't look like any of these names that are next on the list are going to be claimed fairly soon. So in terms of the numbers, on average, we typically see 14 named storms in the Atlantic hurricane season, of which 7 of those are hurricanes. So named storms just getting that tropical storm status. That's going to be winds in excess of 39 miles per hour. And then once your winds cross the threshold to 74 plus miles per hour, that's when you get a named hurricane. And then a major hurricane is classified by a Category 3 hurricane or even greater. Your winds have to get up there around 120 miles per hour in order to claim that classification. So what was forecasted for this 2025 hurricane season? We'll go with Colorado State because they give you a set number, not a range like NOAA that's really just covering the bases and telling you that, hey, it could be below average season, it could be an above average season, it could be right on average. So Colorado State gives you an actual number, and they did forecast an above average hurricane season so far this year with 17 named storms, 9 of which that are hurricanes and 4 of those being major hurricanes. It is worth noting that these numbers aren't quite as high as what happened as of last year's hurricane season. Well, here's what we've seen in 2025 so far. 9 named storms, so we're getting pretty close to that average mark of 14. We need 5 more named storms in order to hit that, 4 of which have been hurricanes. So we're 3 hurricanes off of hitting what our average mark is. But in terms of major hurricanes, we've already hit average. That's a very shocking thing to see. Of the 4 hurricanes we've had so far, Imelda was the only one that didn't classify as a major hurricane at one point in time. We had Hurricane Aaron, Hurricane Gabrielle, and Hurricane Umberto all claim major hurricane status, including, I believe it was Aaron and Umberto, both classify as Category 5 hurricanes. Now, very thankfully, all of those major hurricanes stayed out at sea, didn't pose any implications to the U.S. besides really some increased surf, maybe some coastal riptide warnings. If we can just go every hurricane season and those being the only impacts that we see, we are going to be good to go. But obviously our fair share of named storms have impacted other areas, and we've seen some relatively weak storms or even remnants of storms have some drastic effects, like Tropical Storm Chantal, which happened around 4th of July. That sent in some record flooding up into upstate North Carolina, and then the remnants of what was once Tropical Storm Barry did result in a lot of moisture over the hill country over in Texas and resulted in those very, very tragic floods. But right now, so far, it does look like we are behind schedule and we're still trending below average, but we still have a little bit to go with the Atlantic hurricane season. We'll continue to keep our eyes peeled if there is something worth noting. But not much to talk about weather-wise, except we're finally getting that first taste of fall, specifically Thursday, Friday, and maybe for a little bit on Saturday. I would say the next 3 days going to be mighty nice. I classify a little bit of that fall taste as lows in the 50s, highs in the 70s. We have 2 straight days of those lining up perfectly with the first 2 days of the fair, and you're pairing it up with an abundance of sunshine. Now as we go into Saturday, we start to see the weather pattern change. A little bit more cloud cover, a minuscule 10% chance of rain, and right now I only have a 30% chance of rain for Sunday and Monday, and the chances go down as we go into next Tuesday. We're just going to continue to fine tune that, but as of right now, we're seeing a bunch of different model solutions not necessarily agree on the coverage of rain. Is it going to be widespread, or is it going to be more of the scattered kind of hit or miss nature? And along with that, how heavy is that rain going to be? So I've just kind of put your general rain shower icon on there with some peaks of sunshine that we could see as we get a better idea. So we finally have our first taste of the fall feeling. How about maybe a little bit of how the fall is going to look outside? Well, it's still going to be a ways away before we do that, because in mid-November is when we're expecting that peak of fall foliage here in central Georgia. You can't wait that long. You're really eager to see those red, yellow, and orange leaves. I recommend traveling a little bit farther north, and especially the North Georgia mountains. Right there at the end of October around Halloween, that's when we're going to start to see some peak foliage up in the North Georgia mountains and getting some beautiful scenes with all of that vegetation. So that's going to do it for your extended forecast here today. And once again, another reminder, I will be moving this to 11 a.m. to provide you with the latest updates with all of our tropical systems. Really cover two birds with one stone right there. So tune in once again tomorrow at 11 a.m. for a look at what's ahead.